Hey, Dan.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
There we go. Standing desk.
Oh, nice. You're not the lonely one at the beginning of the meeting.
Yes, I like that song.
Your work.
What's that?
Your work.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep, just hanging out. Just hanging out.
What was that giant Gutenberg Bible you had last time?
Oh,
That thing.
that was, oh man, the tabs are fighting back. Here we go. Hey, what's up? It was this O'Reilly book.
Oh, holy crap! Nice.
It's great. It's so much. It's an O'Reilly book written by Tim O'Reilly himself.
Oh, nice.
Right. Old school.
And you're.
You said hey, but we're muted. So.
Don't mute us.
Dan was just showing us one of his Bibles. One of his many
Really, if you have a
religions.
lot of different Bibles, then none of them are Bible anymore.
He accepts all forms of faith.
Getting a weird sound from you guys.
Yeah, it's because it's totally crap computer. Just put them down on your computer.
That's fine.
Yeah, what is it?
My main grad school machine was a Linux 32-bit, which the world stopped caring about while I was still trying to use it. But that was with grad school computers.
Oh man, I didn't go to grad school. I didn't have that experience.
You moved straight to the computers of industry, which is a smart choice.
Were you in a lab in grad school, or were you modeling things?
Me? Oh, I was in a lab. I was totally experimentalist. My coding comes from image analysis stuff. TrackPy.
Yeah. Did we talk about that? Did you ever use TrackPy? Were you doing colloidal things?
He literally wrote.
I literally wrote
that's
TrackPy.
right.
Yeah, right. Super fun that we have that connection.
I remember that. We talked about that.
One time I was like, yeah, TrackPy isn't the greatest. And then Dan's like,
I was like, I fucking
I wrote it. Yeah. I was learning to program at the time.
Wait, but you didn't, I thought the Manoharan people are definitely committed to TrackPy, at least somewhat.
Yeah, so it originally came out of the Nagel group.
Okay.
The linking part, the feature finding, the image processing, find the dots part came from my group. We merged the Nagel and Lahini code and then made some friends with the Manoharan group, who are probably contributing more to it now than either Nagel or Lahini.
Didn't Crocker also put some work into TrackPy with the whole crosses thing? Could be making that up.
No, I don't think so. I would know that. He did the IDL code though, which was the original.
Yeah, maybe I'm just thinking of the Centroid and the IDL code.
Yeah, I was using his IDL code and annoyed at IDL and copied it in Python. So he deserves credit for thought.
What's IDL stand for again?
Interactive Data Language, I think.
Rob, have you ever even heard of IDL? Oh, you're muted.
We can't hear him.
You're muted.
I know IDL is Interface Description Language, which is maybe a different IDL.
Different IDL, yeah.
IDL is a really dumb language that it seems like this small group of scientists decided was the end all and started using, and probably should have not.
Yeah.
There's people who still use that stuff though.
I think 2 years ago at SciPy, it was an open secret that the company that makes IDL is servicing existing contracts, but is not attempting to work on the language anymore. Python has effectively killed it, which is good.
Sounds like how programming languages really.
Have you heard of Julia?
Yeah, I think that's going to be our overlords someday. I embrace them.
Some people are, especially my neuroscientist friends, are losing their mind about it.
It's pretty cool.
I've heard of it, but I've never looked into it.
You can use emoji as variable names is the most important thing to know about Julia.
mean,
Snowman
to be clear,
equals 5.
JavaScript also has this awesome.
Does it? Oh, God. Python explicitly blacks that out like it's some range of Unicodes.
There's one of my favorite things that I have a constantly flipping back, love and hate is Mike Bostock, the guy who made D3, uses in a lot of his code. It's not emojis, but like higher order Unicode symbols. He uses like actual lambda for things, or like epsilon, like actually uses epsilon for the name of variables, and,
It's pretty cool to be able to
which
do
is
that.
like you read the code and you're like, oh, this is so clear, and then you like go to modify something and you're like, oh my god, this is impossible to type. Let me go find the variable, copy it, and paste it here.
Yeah, that doesn't seem necessary. Although it does seem like something scientists would do because they actually are using.
I mean, I just write out the variables when I do that.
That's right.
I mean, I think that's what most people do. Except, like, especially if you're coming from Python, lambda is like a reserved word, so you can't use that.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Right.
it.
Lamb.
Yeah, physicists are annoyed by that. Trust me. Anyway, Dan, I can't wait to go back to grad school and tell them that I met you. Everyone's gonna be like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, they're gonna be like, "Hey, can you tell me how to fix this code?"
Yeah,
then?
that's exactly what they're gonna be like. This shit is broken.
Yeah.
What do you do? You're probably really generous.
Speaking of emojis in languages, this pull request made me laugh. My friend did this. The last comment from Guido himself says, "I hope this is just a joke."
That's why people look at you funny when they say that your whole project is open source, I guess. They're like, really, how many emojis are there?
Oh, wait, I have interacted with this guy before on another open source project.
Tom or
T.A. Caswell?
yeah, he works in the office next to mine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Small world.
There we
Yeah.
go. Now we're all connected. We did it.
He contributed some super useful stuff to Chicago's 311 service online.
Oh, cool.
And then Chicago never updates their stuff, so I'm not sure it's even why. After years of prodding them.
That's pretty fun.
Might you say me?
I wonder if there's like a 6 degrees of GitHub where you can figure out like if you're in the same issue together. Like,
Yeah, I'm sure people have done that.
I'm sure there's a issue.
Yeah.
There.
definitely.
If nothing
we-
else, someone has written that as a hackathon project.
Right. We have one more piece of light news before we dive into it. Do you guys know Pact Publishing?
Yeah.
Technical publishing company.
Yeah.
They're one of these people that like spam people to be authors. They've recently invited me to write a book on how to write React, which is great news for the project.
Oh, really?
Yes, wonderful.
They're gonna probably be paying you the big bucks for that.
Yeah, definitely. It's gonna go really well for everyone.
The best thing would be if you found out that they actually didn't spam anyone else with it. That was just they just wanted you to write a book about
And,
React.
well, maybe I am getting pretty good at this, right?
Yeah, you're really good.
Are you sure it wasn't like Rob sending you an
Yeah,
email?
I think he was probably trolling me.
I think Brandon probably did it. That's what I'm guessing.
I mean, did it come from pactpub.com or pactpublishing.com?
Is it? Yeah, that's probably the
It's
question.
hilarious. People are now spoofing these assholes who spoof everyone. That's
Yeah, right. Packpub.mrgrog.wordpress.com.
not a very good spoof.
So, pretty light agenda today.
I guess we should get started then.
I'll take notes.
Okay. Uh-oh. Okay. Sorry, my machine has been doing crazy things lately. I thought it would crash. Yeah, so any updates, Andrew and Toli?
Onboarded 2 new analysts. It's going to be, they seem excited, and it's always good to get fresh energy. We're losing 1 analyst, who's Lauren, who's been great, but is on the job market now and has to focus more. We're also going to be, with Rob's help, I made an issue to something we discussed in the last meeting, analyst meeting, is that we wanted to output a bunch of CSVs as we do for a week, but actually take chunks of time farther back and look at 3 months, 6 months, maybe the entire all the records over time for a particular domain. And the idea being is that we just want to circle back and look through particular domains that we missed or haven't been monitoring as closely. And I think that'll be maybe kind of still not clear how the workflow will go, but maybe we'll just have particular domains that will be up for grabs, and we'll try to prioritize them somehow, and then just have folks choose the domain and go through it, just as a way to make sure we're being more comprehensive. So yeah, thanks Rob for helping with that. Hopefully, hopefully we can feel better about the scope that we're monitoring. Otherwise, I'm failing a little bit on finishing this EPA state local climate, state local energy report, but it's very close. I just have to think about how to present one piece of information that I'm a little bit confused about. Anastasia, however, was really useful in crawling the current state local energy domain and getting all the URLs for that. It seems like it's 176 URLs that are interconnected. I don't know if there's a technical term for this, but the point is, if you start from the home page, what are all the URLs you can reach just by moving through? So interconnected maybe is the way to say it. But it is clear, however, that there are URLs that are live on the new subdomain, that you can't reach from just navigating from the home page.
I see.
So something we'll note, but it's a useful kind of analysis.
Can I just, and we can do this after in the agenda because I don't want to break it up, but I was just hoping to get a recap, and maybe for everyone else that only was there. At the end of that conversation, because I had to go early, I think you all discussed confidence level about how that crawling is going, because there had been some concerns that it wasn't comprehensive, that like it was maybe missing stuff because it wasn't waiting long enough for things to render or something like that. I was hoping for a recap on that, but we could do that later if you think that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, can you bring that up at the end?
Okay.
Yeah. The number that Anastasia pulled out is corroborated by this lettering in Versionista, so that makes me feel pretty good about it.
Okay.
Anyway,
That's good.
I think that's about it. There was a report that came out on Friday, some good coverage. I think you all summed up on the channel, so I won't recap it. And you also published a blog post on the Sunlight Foundation post blog, and cross-posted it on Edgy's blog. So check that out. It's about USGS and their search portal and how a bunch of people got confused about it and thought that climate resources were being removed, but actually it's just like they were messing around with their search, and that affected all outputs in their search. But feel free to check out that blog post.
Yeah, we mentioned this last week. It'd be great, actually, if you all wanted to give it a quick look. It's not that long. You can tell us if it makes sense or if it's crap. Because, I mean, we are the most technical people engaged on this side of things, and that's not great. And on the one hand, we're not talking about anything that's like super complex. We're not talking about coding. But on the other hand, it's always good to make sure that this appeals to everyone, not just the one side of the equation. So it'd be cool Do you all have that link? Because we can drop it in right now. Again, if you don't have time, but if you give it a glance and you have any thoughts, let us know.
Yeah, I don't know that I do, but if you could drop the link in chat or in Slack.
Sure. And one thing I'll say is, like, going forward, what we're going to do, probably with some of the folks at Sunlight, nothing to do with environment and climate in particular, but we're going to try to make this, like, I'm not sure, a lexicon, maybe just call it like a rubric or something, that sort of tries to bin all the different categories of changes. Just because, I don't know, there's a lot of journalists, like there's a lot of folks in government as well that actually work on, like, writing these memos. When do you have to register a change? When do you have to actually go through a process versus when is it just ephemeral? And so there's a lot of, basically there is no clear categorization of this stuff. There's no sort of dictionary. And so we wanted to propose something. And yeah, if you all have interest in either looking at that before it goes out or just thinking about it, feel free to let us know. I mean, I know you all are busy, but it certainly is, there's a technical component to it that, you know, it's still a meta thing. It's not about actually like the reality of how code is written, but it's a meta thing that you all probably have a lot of good insight into. So.
I bet that Mike would have some useful thoughts on that too.
Yeah, I think you're right. We actually chatted with him a while back. He posted somewhere on Archivers about this lexicon of like data changes, and I mentioned to him that we were trying to do like a web content version of that. Yeah, we should check back in with him before he puts that out. That's a good thought. Good idea.
Yeah, I'd love to take a look. I think probably we would have less to add than to learn from it. Because I think what that really amounts to is more of the output of like the tacit lessons you have learned in staring at all these pages for so long, which I have only done very, very little of, you know.
I mean, that could be true, but anyway, it's cool to get input on, even if you're like just saying this makes sense, even though you're also learning how we think about it. That's always useful.
Part of it, like, even on like almost like a graph theory level of like, you know, all of these pages now redirect to one page, or all of these pages redirect to their own page, and classifying the types of things that can happen. There's a lot of ways in which things can change. So anyway,
we'll send you a draft at some point. You can let us know anytime.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's really useful there is probably that contains a lot of the things that we want to surface in strategic places in the app as we march towards trying to get more public access. Because I think that is the way to talk about the issues you're worried about people kind of hair triggering on or not examining closely enough.
Yeah, and I think definitely for like building filters, some of these things will almost be actually programmatically possible to detect. Oh, a bunch of things are redirecting to one thing or something. I mean, some of them will be challenging, but there might be a handful that we can actually attack early on. So
yeah,
I know that's a little ways away, but
yeah. Okay. So dev updates, I think you already put something down, Dan, but anything else?
No, that's pretty much it. I've fooled around a little bit, but nothing complete to really be worth talking about. Hoping to find more dev cycles this week than last. Did everybody get a chance to read what I wrote in here? That I made the call for volunteers on IA, so hopefully we'll get some help.
You're ahead of me because I failed to double check in with Mark and Dave about the scraping, crawling.
and you can see I just sent a thing to the folks at PS, so I also set that up too. So I'll prod them to. Now it's well over there a lot of time, so should be able to get them to respond.
Cool. Kevin?
I got one PR merged in. for the domain stuff. So that was cool. And then help review a couple of Rob's PRs, and that got merged in. Right now, just focusing on plan ahead, like V0 and also some of the scraping stuff, but that's going to come in later in the meeting. So I'll just wait till the topics come up to talk more about them. But got a little coding in, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that review. That was super helpful. And for my part, I guess we finally have a full stack of the sort of visual diff running. It has a boatload of problems, but at least it's there and we can see it and enumerate those problems better now. Now that it's running. I haven't deployed the front end part of it yet on production, just on staging. So I need to do that deploy after this call. Or Kevin can, or whatever. But so you can see it on staging. I was hoping to demo it yesterday, or no, Monday at the analyst meeting, but we didn't really have time to do that. So we'll probably do it next week. And I think that's probably the major news on my part. I'm not sure what else I've done in the past week. Yeah. Filed lots of issues.
I'm wondering if you could synthesize that into, I mean, if the answer is no, that's fine, but into a, another timeline check on, I think we talked about this maybe a few weeks ago, on when we would perhaps start having something to play with, even if the backend's not fully completed, like, that we could even like try to write a training protocol down or something like that. Just because it'll definitely take like some weeks before we actually get analysts engaged, and if we want to make a switch over, we want to have some of that done.
What if you started to write a training protocol now? I mean, there's huge pieces missing, but
yeah, I mean, I think maybe we could. So
I don't think anything is central to the workflow. Like login is the big one, right? And getting the diffs to look better and not have as many corner cases, and then a ton of plumbing. So I'm not diminishing the amount of work to be done still, but I bet you could start writing training materials, and early feedback to us would be good.
I mean, I think you or analysts should start trying to use it now. It is obviously not going to fully work for you, and it's not going to be a full replacement for everything, but like you should start like looking at some changes that you're looking at in Versionista, and also look at them in the app, and let us know where it's failing or where it's better.
Does it make sense to take a smaller group, maybe like 2 or 3 analysts, so it's a little bit more manageable? Just have them engage on that, on like, okay, in addition to your regular monitoring, you also kind of think about the software, and as opposed to just loosely telling the whole group. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean, that would probably help keep it focused, and that means that we have a few people we can poke with questions about how it's going, and feel like we're not distracting the whole group by doing that.
Yeah, so maybe we can
volunteers who want to do it.
Maybe I'll ask for some volunteers, and we can have the next analyst meeting go a little bit longer for those that want to be engaged in that process. We can talk about that. How does that sound?
So I'm just thinking, like, right now it's not structured, or is it into the domains the same way that the sheets are, right?
Right. There's no tasking yet, as far as I know.
Yeah.
There is tasking. The thing Kevin got done this past week is there's a little tab switcher at the top between assigned pages and all pages. It doesn't section them by domain, but it is the assigned pages is all the ones on your domains.
I see.
But we could so what we can do is but it's still, there's still not logins, so the tasking is just to, like,
There's a login.
I see.
It'll task a login. If we make people logins, it'll task.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So
Yeah.
then what we can do is.
I was gonna say.
Sorry.
I was like, I think the best thing to do is probably one of us, probably me, because I have the most time. I can sit down with you guys and actually like walk through everything and set up everything on production. Because then I can push to production too. But I feel like we should all like really sync up first, because it doesn't sound like everybody knows what's happening or what's working. So we could do that first, and then be prepared for the meeting to ask like them to start working on it. But I would like to sit down with Tolly and Andrew and then just go through the whole app as it is.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know what's going on.
Oh no. It's just,
I mean, me as much as you guys. I probably wouldn't mind sitting in on that meeting. You don't have to schedule it around me, but keep me in the loop.
yeah.
I obviously am behind on what the UI can do.
Can we make it in time to meet before the Monday cycle, the Monday meeting?
I'm open if you guys have time. So I'm open. Well, let's see.
Either Monday during the day or over the weekend would be good. But,
Yeah. Okay.
What I was going to suggest is, sounds like you're saying the tasking doesn't differentiate between different tabs, which is whatever. But what we can do is just give everyone who's in this volunteer group one of the domains that they're looking at in Versionista, task it to them, because we probably don't want them to have to go through everything twice. That would be pretty awful. But they'll go through some, whatever, a fifth or a sixth of what they're doing. They'll also do, or at least a few of them.
Mhm.
Yeah, we can also put links to the diff view in the app in the CSVs.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Actually, that kind of makes sense. Although I guess then they want to go through the yeah, but that's fine.
I mean,
So then we'll be testing the diff view of the app, but that's fine. That's the thing we care about most here.
yeah, I mean, I think we would love feedback on all of it, so we'd like them to sort of, at some point, try and use the assigned pages view, but I think we also know that it is not good enough yet. I mean, it's all not good enough yet, but like I think that's probably the one that's most clearly farthest behind.
Right.
Maybe.
I
don't know.
And I think we can guess like how assignments should work, how login should look. Getting feedback on the diffing in particular is the important part, right?
Okay, so why don't we, if that's easy enough to just have the CSV spit out a link to the diff view, then we'll just tell a small group of people to do whatever, 20 of them. It doesn't have to be like, just enough that they're working through it. And maybe they can do it in a few different domains, because the different domains will have, the diffing will work differently with different rendered crap and whatnot. Just to try it out across enough different kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, I'll try to get people to understand that it's going to be like at least like a 2 to 3 month not every day, but like an ongoing commitment and for feedback.
We're going to do it a few times.
Yeah, but we just don't want to have people drop off, and at least try to get some buy-in.
Yeah. And those CSV links, those will only be in the CSV that queries from the DB. They won't be in the one that scrapes from Versionista, because that will be like crazy hard.
Yeah, we've switched already, so and the analysts are using DB.
Awesome.
That's so cool.
So they're not having to look at Versionista, or no? What does that mean? The switching from.
Their experience should be the same as it was. It's just that all the spreadsheets they're looking at are generated from our database instead of from Versionista.
Cool. Nice.
So it's less load on Versionista. They should get mad at us less, and the IDs will be the same as the IDs in the database. So they can also just sort of like invent URLs just by looking at the spreadsheet, rather than having to do like 3 steps of transformations to figure that out.
Yeah.
That's probably not
kind of related question. So, on the UI, like the listing page is showing links out to Versionista. When should we switch that to like showing the links to our app? So should that happen for the training?
I think we need to get rid of that soon. So anytime.
Anytime. Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought too. Okay. I'll put that on my list of to-dos.
So you're talking about in the app, it still links up to Versionista.
Yeah, in the app, so like in the listing view, it's showing links that go out to the Versionista diffs, but since we want to move away from that, obviously, it should just point to the diffs in the app.
The diff view in the app.
Yeah,
And while we're in the debugging phase, could we keep both?
yes.
It's easy to cross-reference.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, I think what we should do. Tell me if this doesn't make sense, but I think what we should do is get rid of that. We should get rid of them on the listing pages. So if you're looking at your assigned pages or just a list of all, we should stop worrying about having that be like a table that looks like the CSV does. Because it doesn't really make sense in our context, and we could have a way richer, more meaningful display there. And we should get rid of those links there. And it should still be the same like it is now, where you click and you go to our diff view, and we can get rid of the Versionista links there. And on the actual diff view, if you're looking at a diff of 2 Versionista versions, then we should show the link there at that point in time. That's also like doubly useful because then it'll be the link to an actual view that the exact corresponding view in Versionista, as opposed to a link to like latest to previous or latest to base. It'll be the same 2 versions you're looking at a diff of in the app and a link to view it in Versionista.
So that link would actually re-render if you like use the drop downs to look at a different diff.
Yeah.
Right. That makes sense. What's the URL for the staging UI? I said staging got
the
monitoring.
UI is just monitoring.envirodata.gov.org or monitoring-staging.envirodata.gov.org.
I tried to put the staging first. Got it. Okay.
The thing that I just said, the re-rendering there, is that challenging? Because that's not in the database, right? Like the database doesn't have the URLs for particular pairs of diffs.
The database has the URLs for latest to base and latest to previous, although we wouldn't necessarily use them there. It's really easy to formulate a Versionista URL.
Okay.
And we have all the Versionista IDs for the site and the page and the version, which is all you need to formulate a URL.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, so no Nick or Dawn or Matt here today, so no organizing updates, I guess, to go over. Unless anybody knows about other stuff we should just bring up and note.
Well, I just want to ask a question. Nick was basically.
Oh.
I just want to ask. Nick was saying something about us wanting to present about costs at an upcoming meeting. I mean, I guess I can talk to him about this, but as long as I'm like covering things coming from Google, we don't have a cost issue until we talk about reimbursing that, right? So like the moment, I just wasn't sure what he meant. I don't know what he's getting at. I just wanted to ask him what he's getting at.
I thought it was that the deadline was, this was the deadline that we had set for ourselves, right?
Yeah. No, that's right. But I mean, like, what I said, I don't know, weeks back, and maybe people just, I don't know, don't care, is that I'm saying, like, until we're talking about me, until we're talking about reimbursing me, if we're putting that off and we're saying it might not necessarily happen in full, then we don't have a cost issue, right? We only have a cost issue if we assume that that was paid by our own accounts. Because Nick was saying, like, can we pull from the salary for the PM, which I don't think we want to do until we're finished with that process. So I don't.
So I would say, practically speaking, no, there's not a cost issue right now, so long as everybody who is shouldering a cost is willing to keep shouldering that cost. Organizationally, that's an issue. Nobody should be individually, independently shouldering any of these costs. And that matters. And that matters to surfaced at a higher level, like the Edgy steering committee should be aware of where we are, who's shouldering costs, and why they are individually shouldering it.
Right.
As far as individuals getting reimbursed, that's a conversation between the individual and Edgy.
Okay, yeah, I guess Nick was asking us to present on, and I don't know why Nick is asking us to present. It sounds like Nick should present, or maybe you should present, but I'm not sure why Nick wants us to present. So I can ask him that myself. I don't know exactly what he's getting at there. Because we have no role in that, right? So
yeah, I mean, I assume he's looking at it that way because you are shouldering the vast majority of all the costs. I mean, I'm paying some, but not nearly as much as you. You're paying for Versionista and for Google.
He was referring to us as like the website monitoring committee people.
Oh,
That's
okay.
not a reality anymore, right? Like you all are playing just as much a role in decision making about this stuff. So as is Nick. So I just don't. I'm not. Yeah, I think there's this weird thing that's gone on, which I'm hoping to end, where like it's like framed as like Tully and I are like making decisions about this, and everyone else is just like coming along for the ride. That's definitely not what's happening. So I think that the people who are like center stage in making that decision should present to the steering committee if that's something we want to do. I don't think there should be a middle person. That's what my thought would be. So
I guess the steering committee's concern should be, do we have a path out of this current informal arrangement, right? And if everyone's happy in the current informal arrangement, that's great. But I think Rob's point that this is an organizational issue that they should be trying to resolve, and so maybe they just want clarity from us on updated timelines and plans. I'm not sure how much they already know, but I agree that
asking for anything. Nick's just suggesting we should tell people. There's not like a
right, gotcha.
information.
Well, what is Nick projecting that they want? And that's my guess. But I agree with you that Nick has all the information Nick would need to update them. If Nick wanted to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll say that then, because there's like a lot of people saying folks are responsible, and then it becomes contentious in ways that makes no sense to me, and has actually been frustrating in the past. So I think that the people who have the info should provide it to the steering committee. I think that's the best way to go.
Well, I think I shouldn't postulate too much about Nick's motive in asking you to do it, but I think what he's trying to do, which I would agree with, is to say that the web monitoring group or committee or whatever needs to speak for itself to the Edgy steering committee. Even though like other people have all this info and are capable of speaking just as well on this particular issue, if we do not speak for ourselves, we practically speaking sacrifice our ability to do that later, maybe when it matters. So, and that's not out of bad will or anything. That's just people are like, oh, they don't show up here. They don't go out and look for our opinion on things that matter to us. And so we need to represent ourselves there.
Yeah. Okay. These lines, I don't really see them anymore. Maybe they existed 3 or 4 months ago, but I don't think there's like sharp divides between like the website monitoring committee. It's just like, and in any case, I would say then it makes more sense, I think, for someone who's actually working on that stuff to present. Because
as a person who is like voluntarily shouldering all of the costs, though, it sort of makes sense for you to be there if we're going to bring this up.
Oh, I'll definitely be there. I just don't know. Like, I'm not the person with the knowledge. But.
Can we punt this to when Nick is back on the call?
Okay. He wants to do this tomorrow. So.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Can we figure it out on Slack later today?
I mean, I don't think we will figure it out, but that's all right. I'll just call up Nick if I have to. Basically, I'm not comfortable presenting about our overall costs because I don't have that information. And I don't want to be like the subject of a bunch of questions that people are confused about when I don't have the answers to provide. So if Nick wants to do this, then he should do it, and if he thinks someone would know how to do it, then I would ask that maybe Rob, you join for that call. And I'll ask Nick what he thinks, or we can do that on Slack, because I don't have enough of the knowledge to be able to give a good assessment of the timeline, which the fundamental question about the cost is, what's the timeline to get to the next point? That's the real thing that needs.
I also don't think there's urgency to discuss this tomorrow, so if we can punt it by a week and have him join, talk about it, then maybe that's...
It seems like this could cause more harm than good, rushing this right now. If it's not urgent.
He suggested this on the cost channel, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's sync up with Nick and have that conversation on the cost channel, or have a call with him and figure it out. Because I think it sounds like that's a conversation we or you need to have with Nick. So can't have it here when he's not here. Okay, so moving past that, but only slightly, Internet Archive and PageFreezer updates. So Andrew, you said you just at the start of the meeting actually sent that email to them to say, hey, what's up?
Sorry, I put that in the wrong place in the agenda. Yep. Okay. I'll try to get in touch with them as soon as I can.
Cool. No problem on the agenda location. Okay. So we are now waiting to hear back from them still. So that's not really a change from last week, I think, other than it hasn't just happened since then. In terms of Internet Archive stuff, that's a little bit so I have not synced up with Mark and Dave about whether they are in fact crawling and scraping everything that I think they are, which is everything that PageFreezer covered. So I need to do that. And then the other bits about moving to IA are also on me, which is, I think we got all the stuff that needed to change in the DB changed so that we can do it practically. So I need to write the last bit of processing code that you pass some option to the import script, and it knows to only to query the DB for what pages to import. So I need to write that part, and then I need to get it deployed on the scraper server. So the scraper server is also doing an IA scrape probably once a day, since that's the frequency on which it's reading other sites, but we could do it more or less frequently. We'll need to see how long it actually takes to ask IA for updates on 30,000 web pages.
I've been a while.
Yeah, I mean, even if we get more efficient, which is the goal of the additional processing work I have to do, like it'll be a lot of requests, and even if IA is fast, every request is overhead.
Yeah. So. Gosh, should that be a consideration in where we put these servers? I mean, West Coast is probably good in that case.
I did not think about that. Yeah, probably. So I should also check with Mark on like where is physically most co-located with web.archive.org.
They have some Canadian stuff, and I think they have some Bay Area stuff. So Oregon doesn't sound too bad.
Okay.
But we check it out here.
I mean, US West, either 1 or 3 is in California. So like that might be closer. Yeah, but I should check in with him and see that. I don't think we want to do an AWS Canada region because I think the prices are higher. Yeah, but we should check.
But you suggested Oregon, right? Which is like close to Canada, I assume.
That's yeah, I guess that's true.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Okay.
Probably had a question.
Yeah. So 2 things about the IA stuff. One, and maybe there was just confusion. Maybe we should just be like, I just want to make sure we're being really super clear about what IA is doing. My understanding is that either we gave them a bunch of URLs and they are pinging those URLs and just scraping those pages, or they are also like treating those URLs as seeds, scraping, crawling, and scraping. So if it's framed that way really clearly to mark, figure out which one of those is happening. Is there a third option that I'm not saying?
I know for a fact, I don't need to double check that it's not number one.
Yes. That seems like the case. Yeah.
It's closer to number two, and I'm not sure whether they are seeding from all of those URLs, seeding from only those URLs that are at a common host. So like maybe they only seed from one at a given host, or what. Like I need to check with Dave on those details.
Recursion depth would be the tuning parameter there. But
Yes.
That's a good point, Rob. Like
That was the other one.
there's recursion depth, and then there's do I truncate my recursion depth if I've left the domain that I started?
Yeah.
So that's fine, but I can say for sure that they are not filling up entire domains.
Okay.
Right, 'cause that's another possibility. They also can just say, just stay within epa.gov/. And they're definitely not doing that.
You mean they are leaving the domain that they started in? Is what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that the domain is not being covered.
There are parts of epa.gov that are not getting pinged every day.
Okay.
So maybe they're only doing like a two-step thing, right? Like maybe they're doing something, they're calling, but they're not covering the whole domain. And yeah, as to your point, Dan, maybe they are also leaving the domain. I'm not sure about that either. I know that they're not covering entire domains.
Okay.
Or something like that.
Okay. I don't think we should be worried about whether they're leaving the domain or not.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
but
We should just understand the algorithm clearly.
well, and then if we care at all about matching up with PageFreezer, which maybe we don't completely, but PageFreezer was, to my understanding, covering the full domains or portions of domains that we had requested. So that would be the thing that meshes up with that archive if we wanted to keep contiguity there.
okay. You should
Is that
probably
also-
double check with them to make sure exactly what they were doing.
Yeah, I mean, they said that many, yeah, we can check again, but does somebody else have another understanding? That's what they said like many, many times over to us, I guess. So,
Yeah.
I guess once we have the archive, we can actually check that like in an ad hoc way.
Okay. If I talk with Dave and he says, yeah, by definition, by the way he set it up, how he's seeding, we probably won't cover, for example, it won't be the same as having seeded from epa.gov/.
Right.
And he says, we could do that, but we can't do that every day.
Yeah.
What's your sort of answer or feedback for that scenario?
I would say,
There's definitely optimization there, right? I mean, if it's once a week, but we get all of epa.gov, done, let's take it. But like, I don't know where, if he's like once a month, everything, maybe we have to start thinking about it.
I don't know.
The other option, still not bad. Like, if we're like high priority URLs, check these every day, and then crawl everything once every 2 weeks. I think all these things are very possible and sound good. And then I think there's also a possibility that he's like, well, if you want to do once a week full crawls of PA, we need funding boost. So, and then we've talked about that. So I think there's just a few different branches there. And as long as we're open to that, and I think, yeah, we're happy to.
I mean, if you want to bring Tori to the call or something, I'm sure you can.
We've mostly been chatting back and forth just on Slack, on the IA Slack. So,
I think I mean, you can, I don't know if there's something that you don't know or you want to clarify, but I think you have a sense of like how analysts have been approaching it. We have a weekly like time scale, so that's, if it's like order of magnitudes longer than that, then there's a disconnect. If it's a factor of 2 or 3, maybe it's not so bad.
But I do feel like just like because we have the PF archive, it makes sense to have something that's pretty closely matched to that. Right. So like if we have to sacrifice how often we get it, but we match up with that archive, then we're not. Because then we're like, then we didn't lose anything. Then it's like the perfect situation. Then that's what we've been talking about all along. Like, it's just the thread that goes all the way through. Is that what other people feel as well, or is that just different?
I mean, I feel like that's it. I don't feel like whatever PF was doing should really be a concern. It should be more about where we want to go. And I think where we want to go is having those full domains spidered and scraped. So I would just look at it from that perspective. I mean, if I were waiting PageFuser, I would just be like, I don't freaking know, because when I did that evaluation of like all the actual content in there, it seems like when it scraped is like really irregular, and I couldn't understand this schedule on which it was doing it.
But there are still timestamps, right?
Yes.
There
are timestamps. They're just like this archive corresponds to this timestamp, and it would be like for a given domain, it'd be like 1 week apart, a month apart, a week apart, 3 weeks apart, a week apart. Like, and I would just look at that and be like, I don't remotely understand like what's happening here that is causing like it'd be regular for a couple times, and then there'll be some giant gap and then regular.
What if there were random 404s in their crawling graph that choked off subnetwork?
Yeah. Although that'd be a shame if the way they crawl is like a one through and like one, or it cuts like a whole arm off. That sucks. I hope they don't. Talking with Jefferson, they were like, yeah, we don't. I think they do like. Because they're also going for like a lower quality sort of like capture. I think they go like many times through is their goal when they're crawling.
I have a thing at 3.
Sorry?
I have to go at 3.
9 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it'd be great to figure out what they're doing and then also see if they can go to.
Okay. Yeah. So I just need to make sure that I take care of that today or tomorrow. And yeah, so I got to finish writing that code in processing, and then I got to set up the server to run it. And once we have that happening, we'll have IA data in the database, and then as we have analysts starting to use the app instead of just the CSVs, they can also look at IA data in there, and and then our ability to get off of Versionista is entirely dependent on at what point you and the analyst team is happy enough with the app that it's usable in comparison to Versionista. And worth keeping in mind in all of that now that we're generating those CSVs out of the database, if what we find is that we can get to a point where it's 100% usable if they're using the CSVs with the app the same way they're using the CSVs with the Versionista right now, and we just don't worry about the listing pages, we can do that, right? We can make the CSVs just point to the app instead of the Versionista and do the transition that way, and then worry about improving the listing pages.
I mean, that could be, I guess that depends on how some of the things go with those other views in the back end. But I'm sure, obviously for us, it'll be totally fine. No one will care at all. So you don't have to have that as a constraint.
I think we should actually plan to do it that way, because the point is to stop paying Versionista. That is the point.
So, at one point about that, actually, I don't know how much we've talked about this. We don't have to have the full conversation now, but we don't have any guarantees that IA doesn't just like say, "Oh, we're done doing the scrapes for you." And I don't know, like, if our whole workflow is dependent on them, then we're like, well, okay. Anyway, I think it's worth talking about and saying that up front at some point to them,
Well-
especially when we transition to Versionista, away from Versionista.
I
Just
think
let-
that our reliance on them is more abstracted out than your reliance on Versionista right now. That's kind of the point, right? And we did factor this thinking that we'd be pulling from Versionista, IA, and Page Freezer all at the same time. Until we're actually pulling from two at the same time, we can't know how well that we factored that out. But I think the minute that happens, we could go right to the archiving group and to Brendan's scraper and say, let's get this going and have that, with our help pretty quickly. Does that seem?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think IA would like screw us intentionally saying they might just be like, oh, we don't have, it'd be like we should just let them know so that they can know it, and then
Right.
Right. So I think the right point here between what Tony and Dan are saying is like the important thing in this is that this proves out on a software level that we are able to both on a human process and software process handle data from multiple sources. And then the question is like, do we need a fallback, and what is that fallback if like we run into issues with Internet Archive? And we have all the software stuff we need to have that fallback. We just need to decide whether that's important to put effort into and what it is.
Right.
But this proves out that that's very doable.
Yeah, we should just know that if something does fall through, we have like a 2-week, 3-week transition time, whatever. And then if we feel comfortable with that, understanding what that means.
Right.
Okay.
Can I say one other thing that's just a quick side point, because I know I have to go down, just to ask to make sure. Tasking, if we basically just make some spreadsheet with some like whatever label, DOE-EERE, and then URLs, we can just sub in the sort of domain tasking that way anytime we want, right?
Yeah, that already exists. Let me pull up the link right now.
Yeah. Okay.
You just need to edit it. It's already there, both for production and for staging.
So we can already totally redo that anytime.
Yes.
Can you share permissions? Share the spreadsheet and just make sure we all have permissions to that.
Yeah, it's in Edgy website monitoring website team and committee. I think UI related sheets. So in this drive folder, all of those sheets, if they say staging in front, they're the ones that the UI staging server uses. And if they don't, they're the ones that the production server uses. So tasking is the one that you edit. You probably shouldn't futz with dictionary and important changes, because that's more for you to read out of than for you to edit.
Oh, sorry, but to clarify, I'm not just talking about the tasking. I'm also saying like, if we actually want to reassign what these the definition of these sites, right? So there's a thing called DOE-energy.gov/EERE. In the database that currently has a list of URLs it pertains to, right?
Yes.
Which was
Well,
originally
no. Yeah, it's a little different than that, but sort of, yes.
Okay, so I guess then maybe this is something for the future because it's not important right now anyway. If we eventually want to start pulling from IA stuff, we won't just want to pull from like, okay, here's 10, like we'll want to do tasking on the IA stuff. So essentially what we'll want to do is be able to feed a very simple 2-column spreadsheet that just says, here is a new definition of a site called DOE-whatever, something new, and here are the 2,000 new URLs we want to be associated with that.
I think that's a way more complicated future conversation, because this feeds back into the whole issue and long discussion never quite resolved we had about tagging.
Okay.
What is a domain, you're saying?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, so I guess, okay, we can think,
I don't think we have time to talk about that in 2 minutes.
Yeah. We won't be able to pull in IA stuff without a way of tasking it.
We are for now only pulling IA stuff for the list of pages that we already care about,
Yeah,
and therefore it is pre-tasked.
Yep, that's right.
Okay, we're out of time. But just to note, in terms of moving things to AWS, I made sort of an umbrella issue, which points to a whole bunch of other issues across the different repositories. Link is in the notes. Please add things to it or note things there or whatever as meaningful or necessary. Cool. See y'all next week.
See you guys.
Bye.
Later.